I never thought I'd be the guy who found himself in a situation like this. My name is Jake, and I've been married to Sarah for 5 years now. We met in college and had that typical whirlwind romance, with dinners that turned into late-night talks and spontaneous road trips. At first, it felt like we were invincible, two kids against the world. But as time went on, things began to shift in ways I didn't fully notice until they hit me like a freight train. It started small. I remember this one night when we were sitting on the couch watching a movie. I looked over at her and she seemed distant, lost in thought. I brushed it off, thinking she was just tired from work. Sarah has always been the more ambitious one, working late hours at her marketing job while I was content with my 9 to 5. But over the months, she started to come home later and later, and when I asked her about it, she'd respond with a dismissive wave of her hand and a huff. You know how it is, Jake. My boss is a real pain in the ass. I didn't want to appear insecure or paranoid, so I tried to reassure myself that it was just work stress. I couldn't help but notice the changes in our routine. We used to have dinner together almost every night, but then it morphed into her grabbing takeout on her way home or making excuses about having to meet a client. I began to feel like I was living with a stranger. Then there was the tattoo. I noticed it one night when she was getting ready for bed. She pulled down her pajama shorts and there it was, a tattoo right above her thigh. A delicate little design that looked like it had been carefully thought out. It struck me as strange because I didn't remember agreeing to it. "When did you get that?" I asked, trying to suppress the swell of anxiety in my chest. "Oh, it's nothing," she replied, brushing it off. "Just something I wanted to do for myself." But the way she said it, with that little edge in her voice, didn't sit right with me. I felt an unsettling knot in my stomach that I couldn't shake. Then came the evening that changed everything. I was supposed to have a quiet night in, just me and my trusty Netflix, when Sarah called to say she'd be working late again. Something was nagging at me. I'd been scrolling through her social media for no real reason, only to find a picture, a tagged image of her with a guy I didn't recognize, laughing with a drink in his hand. The caption read, "Cheers to the best work friends." I felt my heart drop. Was this the client she was meeting? I turned the image over in my mind, trying to justify it. But no amount of rationalization could ease my growing dread. I'll admit I was spiraling. I had a feeling something was off and I needed to know the truth. That night I decided to put my doubts to rest. I waited until she got home, and when she walked through the door I confronted her about the tattoo and the guy in the photo. Sarah's expression shifted from surprise to annoyance in an instant. "You're being ridiculous, Jake. It's just a tattoo and he's just a coworker." Her voice was sharp, but my heart was pounding. I pressed on, asking why she hadn't mentioned him. "To me, you know I'm busy," she replied, rolling her eyes. "You're making a big deal out of nothing." But in that moment I felt the weight of disbelief fall on me. Something was off and I could feel it in my bones. I had to know what was really happening in my marriage. This wasn't just a moment of anger for me. It was a tidal wave of emotions washing over. I felt betrayed, angry, and deeply hurt. Did I really want to keep digging? Part of me was terrified of what I might find. But I knew I had to confront her again. I needed to understand how we had gone from a promising love story to this convoluted mess of secrets and lies. I took a deep breath, steeling myself for what lay ahead. As I stared into her eyes, I could sense the tension crackling in the air. I was no longer just a husband. I was a man seeking the truth, no matter how painful it might be. The realization hit me. The facade we built together was crumbling, and I was determined to uncover what lay beneath. The next few days were a whirlwind of emotions. I walked around feeling like I was in a fog, unable to shake the nagging thought that something was terribly wrong. Every day blurred into the next as I waited for Sarah to come home, her absence and the tension between us growing heavier with each passing minute. I couldn't focus on work, and my friends began to notice my distracted demeanor. "You all right, man?" one of them asked over beers that week. I forced a smile and brushed it off, but inside I felt like I was unraveling. Then one afternoon it happened. I got off work early, the sun shining brightly as I drove home, determined to confront the truth once and for all. I had decided to take a risk. I would check her phone. It felt wrong, like an invasion of privacy, but the ache in my gut urged me on. I had to know if my suspicions were valid. When I got home, Sarah was already there, scrolling through her social media feeds. I casually made small talk while my heart raced. "Hey, do you mind if I borrow your phone for a second?" I asked, trying to sound nonchalant. "What for?" she replied, arching an eyebrow. "I just wanted to look something up," I said, already half reaching for it. She hesitated, her eyes narrowing, but ultimately handed it over. My palms were clammy as I unlocked the screen. I rifled through her messages, my heartbeat echoing in my ears. At first, it was just mundane conversations with friends, but as I scrolled, I stumbled upon a thread that made my blood run cold. It was a conversation with someone named Mike, and the messages were flirty, filled with emojis and suggestive comments. "Can't stop thinking about you," one read. "When can we meet again?" I could feel the world around me tilt. My hands trembled as I kept scrolling, my heart pounding louder with every word. The messages went back weeks, growing more intimate over time. "You make me feel alive," another one said. "I can't wait to see you next weekend." I barely registered Sarah's presence behind me until I heard her gasp. "Jake, what are you doing?" I turned to find her pale and wide-eyed, her expression a mix of shock and anger. I was just looking for something," I stammered, my mind racing. "Give me my phone," she shouted, grabbing it from my hands. I could see the panic in her eyes, and at that moment I realized I had unearthed something monumental. "Sarah, who the hell is Mike?" I demanded, feeling the heat rise in my chest. The confrontation had finally arrived, but my heart felt heavy with dread. "Jake, it's not what you think. He's just a friend from work," she replied defensively, her voice rising. "Just a friend? Is that why you've been lying about working late? Is that why you got that tattoo?" I shot back, my frustration boiling over. "Stop it, you're being paranoid," she yelled, crossing her arms defensively. I took a deep breath, trying to regain my composure. "Paranoid? I'm looking at texts that say otherwise. How long has this been going on?" Her eyes flickered with guilt, and for a moment I thought I could see the truth reflected in her gaze. "It's just a fling, Jake. It didn't mean anything." "You know how it is." "No, I don't know how it is," I interrupted, my voice echoing in our small living room. "You've been cheating on me, Sarah. This isn't just a misunderstanding, this is betrayal." The silence that followed was deafening. I felt my heart shatter as I stared at the woman I once loved, the woman who had promised to spend her life with me. She stood there, seeming smaller and more fragile than I'd ever seen her. "Jake, please," she murmured, her voice now barely above a whisper. "I didn't want to hurt you, but the damage was done." The emotional weight of the betrayal crashed over me like a tidal wave. I felt the pain in my chest tighten, a leaden feeling that seemed to expand with every breath. I could see her struggles and the cracks in our marriage laid bare, and I finally understood what had been brewing beneath the surface. "I can't do this," I said, my voice trembling. "I can't pretend everything is fine anymore. I thought we were a team, Sarah. I thought we had something real. Jake, I'm sorry, I made a mistake." She pleaded, her eyes filling with tears, but the tears seemed to fall too late. I realized then that her words were just desperate attempts to salvage what was left of our crumbling relationship. I felt anger swell inside me, fueled by disbelief and sorrow. I didn't know how I'd recover from this, or if I even wanted to. This confrontation was just the beginning. I needed to decide how to move forward from this moment, whether it was worth salvaging or if it was time to close this chapter for good. All I knew was that the woman I thought I knew had vanished behind a curtain of lies, and I was left trying to navigate the wreckage. The days that followed the confrontation felt like the slowest moments of my life. It was a surreal experience, living under the same roof as Sarah while grappling with the aftermath of her betrayal. I spent hours pacing around the house, my mind racing and my emotions spiraling. The weight of what had happened between us was suffocating, and I couldn't shake the feeling that our marriage had been a lie. Sarah tried her best to reach out to me after that night, but her efforts felt hollow. She would bring me coffee in the mornings, a tentative smile on her face, as if trying to bridge the chasm that had opened between us, but I could hardly look her in the eye. I felt like I was living with a ghost, haunted by the memories of what we once had. One night, after several uncomfortable days of silence, I decided to sit down with her. We needed to talk, to really address what had happened. I was tired of the superficial exchanges we'd been having. I needed to understand why she had chosen to betray me. "Can we just talk?" I asked, my voice barely above a whisper. I was surprised at how nervous I felt, but I knew it was necessary. "Sure," she replied, her expression shifting to one of cautious hope. We sat across from each other at the dining table, the air thick with unspoken words. It felt like our last chance to lay everything bare. "Why, Sarah, how could you do this to me?" She sighed deeply, her shoulders slumping. "I don't know, Jake. I felt like you were slipping away from me. We weren't connecting like we used to." "I thought I was just being adventurous," she said, her voice faltering. "Adventurous? Is that what you call it?" I asked, incredulous. "You think cheating is just a form of adventure?" "I didn't plan for it to happen. It started off as innocent flirting and then it just escalated. Mike made me feel wanted, and I guess I wanted to feel something different for a while." Her eyes searched mine, pleading for understanding I wasn't ready to give. "It's not about feeling wanted, Sarah. It's about trust." "You shattered that trust when you started lying to me," I replied, my voice rising slightly. I know," she said, tears welling up in her eyes. "I messed up. I thought I could juggle it without hurting you. I wanted to have both you and the thrill." I could see the guilt etched on her face, and for a moment I felt a pang of sympathy. But that sympathy disappeared as quickly as it came. I was the one who had been left to pick up the pieces. "You say it's a mistake, but it's more than that. You didn't just slip up. You chose to engage with him to keep it going. And you kept lying to me." "I'm sorry," she cried, her voice breaking. "I never wanted to hurt you, Jake. I thought I could handle it without it affecting our relationship." "Clearly that didn't work out," I said bitterly, shaking my head. "How can I trust you again? You've proven that you can't be honest with me." The tears fell freely now, and she reached across the table, grasping my hand. "Please, Jake, I'll do anything to make this right. I love you. I want us to work through this." The truth hung in the air between us, heavy and suffocating. I felt my heartache intensify. Part of me wanted to believe her, to cling to the hope of restoring what we had. But another part of me was screaming that I deserved better, that I couldn't allow myself to be fooled again. "Do you even realize that your actions have consequences?" I asked, my voice shaky. "You've taken something sacred between us and trampled all over it. I can't just forget that." In that moment, I knew I was at a crossroads. I had to decide whether to fight for our marriage or walk away from it. I had always believed in the vows we made, the promise to stand by each other no matter the storm. But could I really weather this storm? As the silence enveloped us, I felt a mix of anger and sadness wash over me. I loved Sarah. I wanted to see her happy. But I also wanted to be happy, and right now I felt anything but. "I can't pretend that everything is okay," I finally said, pulling my hand away from hers. "I need time to think about what I want. I don't know if we can fix this." Her expression crumbled, and I could see the reality of my words sinking in. It was as if I had shattered the last remnants of hope in her eyes. "Jake, please," she began, but I cut her off. "No, Sarah, I need space. I need to figure out if there's anything left worth saving." With that, I stood up from the table and walked away, leaving her sitting there, tears streaming down her face. I needed to step back and evaluate everything. I couldn't make a decision based on pain and emotion alone. I had to think clearly about whether love was enough to heal the wounds she had inflicted on our marriage. The future felt uncertain, but at least I knew that I had to chart my own path, whatever that might look like. The following days were a blur of introspection and solitude. I found myself shaking up my routine, trying to fill the empty spaces in my life that had once been vibrant with Sarah's laughter. I'd go to the gym more often, hoping that physical exertion would help me clear my mind. I picked up old hobbies, things I'd let slip away during the busy years of marriage. I felt the need to reconnect with myself, to rediscover who I was beneath the pain. But the ache of betrayal lingered like a shadow that crept along beside me. Everywhere I went, I was reminded of her. The coffee shop where we had our first date, the park where we'd shared countless picnics. Each place felt like a landmine, ready to explode with memories I wasn't ready to face. I started talking to a few close friends who had been supportive during this tumultuous time. They listened as I recounted the events. providing a mix of sympathy and tough love. "Dude, you deserve better than someone who can't be honest with you," said Tom, my best friend since high school. "You can't just forgive and forget after something like that." Their voices nagged at me, questioning what I truly wanted. I found myself torn between wanting to mend things with Sarah and the gnawing realization that I might never trust her again. Was it worth the effort to salvage a relationship that was built on a shaky foundation? Then came the moment that pushed me to the edge. One evening, as I returned home from the gym, I noticed Sarah's car parked in the driveway. My heart sank. She hadn't left, she was still here. The sight of her car felt like a physical blow. I had imagined her staying away to give me space, but here she was, either too stubborn or too desperate to leave. Taking a deep breath, I steeled myself and walked inside. The tension was palpable. I could hear her moving around in the kitchen, the clatter of pots and pans echoing through the silence. I approached slowly, uncertain of what to expect. "Hey," she said, her voice tentative. I nodded, feeling the air between us thick with unspoken words. "What are you doing here?" "I wanted to talk. I know I messed up, but I think we can fix this," she said, her tone earnest. I took a moment to collect my thoughts. "Sarah, I don't know if we can. You broke my trust. I'm not sure how to move forward." "I understand that," she replied, her hands trembling slightly. "But can you at least give me a chance to prove that I can change?" "I want to do better." "Change?" I echoed, incredulous. "You've been lying to me for months. How can I believe that you'll just suddenly be honest? This isn't something that can be fixed overnight." "I know it won't be easy, but I want to try. I want to be the wife you deserve," she pleaded, desperation creeping into her voice. I could see the sincerity in her eyes, but the part of me that felt betrayed was screaming to protect myself. "And what happens if I let you back in and you hurt me again?" "What then? I promise." "It won't happen," she said, stepping closer, her eyes shining with unshed tears. "I love you, Jake. I want to make this work. Just give me a chance to show you how much you mean to me." As she reached for my hand, I hesitated. There was a flicker of hope in her expression, but my heart was still heavy with doubt. Could I rebuild the trust that had been shattered, or was I just setting myself up for more heartache? "I need time, Sarah," I said, pulling my hand away. "Time to think about what I really want. I'm not ready to jump back into that yet." Her face fell, and I could see the disappointment wash over her. "I understand," she whispered, her voice barely audible, "but I'll be here waiting for you." I turned away, not wanting to see the pain etched on her face. I stepped back into the living room, feeling the weight of her gaze. My heart was a battlefield. Part of me wanted to forgive her and believe in the possibility of a fresh start, while another part was screaming to guard myself against further hurt. I needed to take a step back and evaluate what our relationship really meant to me. That night, I stayed up late, sifting through my thoughts. I pulled out an old notebook, something I hadn't used in years, and began to jot down my feelings. It was therapeutic, almost cathartic. I wrote about the good times Sarah and I had shared, the moments that made me fall in love with her. But I also wrote about the pain, the betrayal, and the heartache that had come crashing down. I eventually fell asleep with the notebook still open, my thoughts swirling around in my mind. I knew I had a decision to make, and it wasn't just about Sarah. It was about me. I had to figure out what I wanted from this relationship, and if rebuilding trust was even possible. The next morning, I woke up with a sense of clarity. I needed to confront the reality of our situation, and I had to be honest with myself first before I could be honest with her. The journey ahead was uncertain, but it was a journey I needed to take, whether that meant fighting for our marriage or starting anew. It was time to find out what I was truly willing to accept and what I could no longer ignore. The days turned into a week, and I spent that time reflecting and processing everything that had transpired. I was consumed by a mix of anger, sadness, and confusion. I knew I needed to lay it all out on the table, not just for Sarah, but for my own peace of mind. I wanted to be clear about my feelings and what I expected moving forward. Finally, I decided it was time for another serious conversation. I braced myself as I called Sarah into the living room, my heart pounding in my chest. When she walked in, I could see the hope in her eyes, but I knew I had to be honest. "Sarah," I began, trying to express my thoughts as clearly as possible. "I've been doing a lot of thinking over the past week." "Okay?" she replied, her expression shifting from anticipation to concern. "What's on your mind?" "I want to be straight with you about where I'm at. I've been hurt, and I don't know if I can fully trust you again. I don't want to go into this half-heartedly," I said, trying to keep my voice steady. "I understand, Jake, I really do," she said, nodding earnestly. "I know I made a huge mistake and I'm sorry for that, but I'm willing to do whatever it takes to rebuild that trust." I took a deep breath, my mind racing with thoughts. What does that even look like? Because I need to know that you're serious. I can't just ignore what's happened, and I can't pretend everything is okay. I'll go to counseling. I'll be completely transparent with you. I'll share my phone, my schedule, my everything. I want to show you that I'm committed to making this work," she said, her desperation evident. "That's a start," I replied, weighing her words carefully. "But I need to see consistency, Sarah. I need to feel secure again, and that's not going to happen overnight." "I can do that," she insisted, her eyes pleading with me. "I just need you to give me a chance. I love you, and I want to make this right." As I looked into her eyes, I could see the sincerity behind her words, but part of me was still hesitant. "What if you decide to cheat again? What if I let you back in and you hurt me all over again?" I pressed, needing to voice the fears that had been gnawing at me. "Then I'll accept whatever consequences come my way. I know I messed up and I will never let it happen again. You have my word," she replied, her voice steady but filled with emotion. The weight of the conversation hung heavy between us. I had always believed in the power of love and commitment, but now I was faced with the reality that love alone wasn't enough to heal wounds this deep. "I'm willing to give you a chance, but it will take time for me to trust you again," I said, my voice firm. "I want you to understand that this is a process, and I need to see effort from you, real, consistent effort. I promise I'll show you. I'll do whatever it takes," she said, relief flooding her features. "Good," I replied, feeling a fragile hope flicker to life. "But I need to be clear, if you ever find yourself in that situation again, if you ever lie to me again, I won't be able to forgive it. I won't stick around for another betrayal." "I understand. I'll never let it come to that," she said, her tone earnest. We spent the next hour discussing what this would look like moving forward. We talked about counseling, communication strategies, and how we would navigate our relationship in this new light. It felt like a small step forward, but I was cautious, aware that actions would speak louder than words. As the conversation wound down, I felt a strange mix of apprehension and hope. It was a tentative agreement, one that would require diligence on both our parts. I realized that rebuilding trust wouldn't be easy, but perhaps it was achievable if we both committed to it wholeheartedly. Over the following weeks, we began to attend couples therapy together. It was uncomfortable at first, sitting across from a therapist and peeling back layers of our relationship. We talked about our past, what had led to the breakdown of trust, and the ways we could improve our communication. There were tears, anger, and moments of vulnerability that cracked open the hard exterior I had built around my heart. Slowly, I began to see glimpses of the woman I fell in love with, the one who could make me laugh until my sides hurt, the one who shared my dreams and ambitions. But every time I felt that flicker of affection, I remembered the betrayal lurking in the background, and I found it difficult to let my guard down completely. There were moments that tested my resolve. I found myself questioning whether it was worth it to continue fighting for a relationship that had caused me so much pain. But Sarah's commitment to change was unwavering. She continued to show me her phone, shared her calendar, and made an effort to communicate in ways she hadn't before. It was exhausting, but slowly, I felt myself starting to trust her again, if only a little. I realized then that this journey wasn't just about her making amends. It was about me learning to forgive, not just for her sake, but for my own. I had to let go of the hurt to move forward, and that process was just as important as her efforts to rebuild what was lost. As I navigated this path of healing, I understood something crucial. Rebuilding a relationship after betrayal is a journey, not a destination. I had to take it day by day, and while the future was uncertain, I was learning to embrace the possibility that love could still thrive, even in the wake of heartbreak. As the weeks turned into months, The process of rebuilding our relationship became a routine that felt both familiar and foreign. We attended therapy sessions regularly, and I could see the genuine effort Sarah was putting into changing her behavior. There were still hard days, where the memories of betrayal clawed at the back of my mind, but there were also moments of joy that reminded me of our connection. One evening, we found ourselves sitting together on the couch, watching a show we used to love. As the credits rolled, I turned to her, a lightness in my chest that hadn't been there before. "You know, it feels nice to just relax like this again," I said, a smile breaking through my otherwise guarded demeanor. "I've missed this," she replied, her eyes softening. "I've missed us." I realized that amidst the healing process, I had begun to rediscover the love that I had for her. It was still fragile like a delicate flower in the spring, but it was there. "I'm glad you're here," I told her sincerely. "It's been tough, but I can see the changes in you." "I'll keep working at it, I promise," she said, her voice filled with determination. "I want to show you that I'm worthy of your trust again." That evening marked a turning point for me. I felt a flicker of hope that perhaps we could navigate this path together. I had learned that forgiveness was not about erasing the past, but about acknowledging it, learning from it, and allowing ourselves to grow. However, I also knew that there were no guarantees. Trust is a fragile thing, and I understood that it could take time to fully heal. But I was willing to take the risk. I wanted to see if we could build something stronger than what we had before, a relationship grounded in honesty and openness. As the days turned into weeks, our conversations began to shift. We talked about our future together, travel plans, dreams we had shelved, and goals we wanted to achieve. We started going on date nights, reconnecting and rediscovering each other in ways I thought were lost. We shared laughter and warmth, and it felt like the fog that had shrouded us was slowly lifting. Then came the day when we had a breakthrough. During one of our therapy sessions, we discussed boundaries and expectations, and I finally felt the weight of my emotions lifting. I was able to articulate my fears and hopes without holding back. "I want to believe in us," I said, my voice steady. "But I need to know that I can trust you completely. I can't promise I won't mess up again, but I can promise that I'll be honest with you," she responded, her gaze unwavering. "I want to be better for you and for me. I've learned so much about myself through this process, and I want to keep growing." That moment crystallized for me. I realized that we were both in this together, not as adversaries, but as partners navigating through the rough waters of our relationship. It was a mutual commitment to healing, and it felt like the foundation of something new. As we continued to grow, I discovered that it was possible to forgive while still holding onto the lessons learned. The scars of betrayal would always remain, but they no longer defined us. Instead, they became part of our story, an important chapter that shaped who we were as individuals and as a couple. Months passed, and I could feel the love between us transforming. It wasn't the same love we had shared before, but it was deeper, more resilient. We had weathered a storm together, and it had forged a connection that was stronger than I had ever imagined. On a quiet night, as we cuddled on the couch, I leaned in and whispered, "I love you, Sarah." She smiled, her eyes sparkling with gratitude. "I love you too, Jake. Thank you for giving me a second chance." In that moment, I understood the power of forgiveness and the strength it takes to rebuild after betrayal. It was a lesson in resilience, trust, and the unwavering capacity of love to heal, even in the face of deep wounds. I knew that the road ahead would still have its challenges, but together we could face anything. As I reflected on our journey, I felt a sense of peace settle over me. It was a reminder that relationships take work, and sometimes the hardest battles lead to the most rewarding victories. Each day was a new chance to reaffirm our commitment to one another, and I was ready to embrace whatever came next. This experience had taught me that love isn't just about perfection. It's about the willingness to grow, to learn, and to fight for one another through the storms of life. And as we sat there together, I knew that we were just beginning to write the next chapter of our story, one filled with hope, love, and the promise of a brighter future.